But right now, we are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not, because if we don't do it, Russia or China will take over Greenland, and we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor. Okay? I would like to make a deal, the easy way, but if we don't do it the easy way, we're going to do it the hard way.
In global politics, some territories carry influence far beyond their population, economy, or infrastructure. Greenland is one of those places. Positioned between North America and Europe, covered mostly by ice, and inhabited by fewer than 60,000 people, Greenland has rarely been the center of public geopolitical debates. Yet historically, it has been quietly vital to global power balances. During the Second World War, the United States established military installations on Greenland to monitor the North Atlantic and protect shipping routes from Nazi Germany. Later, during the Cold War, the island again became strategically essential as tensions grew between Western powers and the Soviet Union. Greenland's location allowed early missile detection and surveillance across polar flight paths. Today, Greenland remains part of the U.S. President Donald Trump renewed his interest in acquiring Greenland. The idea itself was not entirely unprecedented. In 1946, the United States formally offered to purchase Greenland from Denmark. The offer, valued at $100 million at the time, was declined by Danish authorities. Adjusted for modern inflation, that proposal would equal roughly $1.7 billion today. For decades, the concept faded into historical curiosity. But when Trump revived the proposal, it was framed not simply as a financial transaction, but as a strategic necessity. As global competition intensifies over Arctic resources and trade routes, Greenland's value has grown dramatically. Scientists estimate that beneath Greenland's ice lie significant deposits of rare earth minerals, fossil fuels, and natural energy reserves. Some projections suggest the island holds energy resources worth approximately $4.4 trillion. These minerals are critical for modern technologies, including renewable energy systems, military equipment, and advanced electronics. However, extracting these resources would require massive investments, infrastructure development, and environmental risk management. The value exists largely as potential rather than immediate profit. Still, Trump's rhetoric moved beyond economic negotiations. He publicly suggested that if diplomatic efforts to acquire Greenland failed, the United States could consider using force. Statements implying that Washington might secure control of Greenland the hard way introduced a level of escalation rarely seen between NATO allies. The suggestion alone triggered sharp reactions across Europe, especially in Denmark, which maintains sovereignty over Greenland. Denmark's response reflected the seriousness of the situation. Danish military officials reportedly emphasized strict defensive protocols, reinforcing that any unauthorized foreign military presence in Greenland would be treated as a hostile action. While not openly directing confrontation with American forces, Denmark signaled that territorial defense would remain non-negotiable. The reaction highlighted a dangerous contradiction: two NATO members, theoretically bound by collective defense agreements, suddenly appearing on opposing sides of a potential territorial dispute. The strategic calculation behind Trump's positions centered on security narratives. He argued that if the United States failed to control Greenland, rival powers such as Russia or China could eventually gain influence there. The Arctic region is increasingly viewed as a new frontier for geopolitical competition. Melting ice is gradually opening new shipping routes, reducing transit times between major global markets. Countries with access to Arctic territory may gain economic and military advantages. Russia has significantly expanded its Arctic military infrastructure over the past decade. China, while not geographically Arctic, has invested heavily in polar research and infrastructure projects across northern regions. These developments have intensified Western security concerns. However, critics across Europe and international security circles question the immediacy of those threats. At the time of these statements, there was no confirmed evidence that Russia or China planned to seize or militarize Greenland. While both countries showed interest in Arctic cooperation and resource exploration, neither had signaled direct territorial ambitions toward Greenland. European analysts argued that invoking foreign threats could be a strategic narrative rather than a reflection of immediate intelligence. The deeper risk extended beyond Greenland itself. NATO, formed in 1949, has long operated on the principle that an attack against one member is considered an attack against all. This collective defense framework has helped stabilize transatlantic security for decades. But if one NATO country were to attempt territorial control over another member's territory, it would create an unprecedented internal conflict. Danish Prime Minister statements suggested that such an action could undermine NATO's credibility entirely, raising questions about whether the alliance could survive such a rupture. Historically, NATO has endured serious disagreements without collapsing. During the Suez Crisis of 1956, the United States strongly opposed military actions taken by Britain and France against Egypt. The dispute exposed major divisions but did not dismantle the alliance. Later, fishing rights conflicts between the United Kingdom, Iceland, and the United States caused prolonged diplomatic friction during the Cold War era. In 1974, tensions between Greece and Turkey escalated into military confrontation over Cyprus, bringing two NATO members dangerously close to full-scale war. More recently, divisions surfaced during the 2003 Iraq War, when several European countries refused to participate in the US-led invasion. Each crisis tested NATO's unity, but structural cooperation ultimately remained intact. Greenland, however, presents a different type of challenge. Unlike previous disputes centered on external military campaigns or regional disagreements, this conflict directly questions sovereignty within the alliance itself. If the United States attempted to gain control of Greenland through coercion or force, it could redefine alliance loyalty and territorial legitimacy among NATO partners. Beyond military strategy, Trump's approach also included financial negotiation strategies aimed at Greenland's population. Reports suggested proposals where individual Greenland residents could receive significant compensation if sovereignty shifted to the United States. Estimates mention payments potentially reaching approximately $100,000 per resident. With a population of roughly 57,000, such offers could reach tens of billions of dollars overall. Yet such proposals raised complex ethical and political questions. Greenland's population includes indigenous communities with deep cultural ties to the land. For many residents, identity, environmental preservation, and political autonomy outweigh direct financial incentives. Economic valuations of Greenland vary widely among analysts. Some projections suggest that if all natural resources were fully accessible, Greenland's total resource value could exceed multiple trillion dollars. Others argue that infrastructure challenges, environmental restrictions, and harsh Arctic conditions would dramatically reduce profitability. The cost of building extraction facilities, transportation networks, and climate-adapted workforce systems could require decades of investment. This uncertainty makes Greenland both extremely valuable and extremely risky as a long-term economic asset. Trump's strategic messaging often bypassed these complexities. His statements indicated a belief that direct military control could secure the island quickly, minimizing negotiation costs. From a purely operational standpoint, analysts acknowledge that Greenland's limited population and minimal defensive infrastructure could make it vulnerable to rapid occupation by a technologically advanced military. However, the geopolitical aftermath would likely be far more complicated than the initial operation. European powers, including France and Germany, would face immediate diplomatic pressure to respond. Even without direct military retaliation, coordinated economic sanctions or political isolation could reshape Western alliances. The broader European Union might reconsider defense cooperation structures, potentially accelerating independent military initiatives separate from NATO. Such shifts would alter global power dynamics in ways that extend far beyond Arctic territory. The situation also intersects with global perceptions of international law. Sovereignty, territorial integrity, and self-determination form the foundation of modern diplomatic norms. If a major democratic power bypassed these principles through unilateral territorial expansion, it could weaken international legal standards worldwide. Smaller nations might question whether security guarantees remain reliable, while rival powers could justify similar territorial claims using precedent arguments. Meanwhile, Greenland itself remains internally divided about its long-term political future. Some residents support gradual independence from Denmark, seeking greater economic control and cultural autonomy. Others prefer maintaining Danish support, particularly because Denmark provides substantial financial subsidies that sustain Greenland's public services and infrastructure. Any external attempt to alter sovereignty risks intensifying internal political tensions, potentially destabilizing local governance structures. The United States maintains existing military installations in Greenland, including the Patuxent Space Base, formerly known as Thule Air Base. This facility plays a critical role in missile warning systems, satellite monitoring, and Arctic defense coordination. Through bilateral agreements with Denmark, the United States already holds significant strategic access without requiring full territorial ownership. Critics of territorial acquisition argue that expanding control might deliver limited additional security benefits compared to the diplomatic risks involved. Another layer of complexity involves environmental consequences. Greenland's ice sheet is one of the largest freshwater reserves on Earth. Climate change has accelerated ice melting, drawing scientific attention to global sea level projections. Increased industrial activity could intensify ecological disruption, affecting fragile Arctic ecosystems and global climate stability. International environmental organizations have expressed concern that resource extraction in Greenland could create irreversible damage if not carefully regulated. As tensions grow, international reactions remain cautious. Many countries have avoided taking direct positions, preferring to monitor diplomatic developments rather than escalate confrontations. India, for example, has maintained a neutral stance. While Danish officials have expressed hope that democratic nations would support Denmark's territorial sovereignty, India has broader strategic considerations, including trade negotiations and tariff discussions with the United States. Balancing diplomatic partnerships often requires avoiding entanglement in disputes where national interests remain indirect. This neutrality reflects a larger global pattern. Many nations increasingly prioritize economic partnerships over ideological alignment, especially when dealing with major powers. Public statements often remain deliberately vague, allowing governments to adapt their positions as geopolitical conditions evolve. In the Greenland situation, such diplomatic ambiguity demonstrates how modern international relations operate within overlapping layers of security, commerce, and political leverage. Trump's Greenland ambition also reflects a broader trend in global leadership strategies that prioritize territorial and resource competition. As technological industries expand and climate change reshapes geographic accessibility, remote regions once considered economically irrelevant are becoming strategic focal points. The Arctic, Antarctic, and deep-sea resource zones are now emerging as the next arenas for global competition. Greenland stands at the intersection of these transformations. The controversy also raises psychological and symbolic dimensions of global power. Territorial expansion historically served as a demonstration of national strength. While modern diplomacy emphasizes cooperation, strategic acquisitions continue to signal influence. For political leaders, controlling a resource-rich Arctic territory could reinforce narratives of national dominance and long-term economic security. Yet these symbolic victories often carry unpredictable consequences. Public perception plays a significant role in shaping political outcomes. Within the United States, opinions on acquiring Greenland vary widely. Some view it as a visionary strategic move, while others see it as unnecessary expansionism. In Europe, public sentiment largely supports Danish sovereignty, interpreting American acquisition attempts as destabilizing to Allied trust. Media coverage across continents continues shaping these narratives, influencing voter attitudes and policy debates. Military strategists emphasize that modern conflicts rarely remain confined to initial objectives. Even limited territorial disputes can trigger cascading diplomatic crises, cyber confrontations, economic retaliation, and proxy conflicts. Greenland's strategic location amplifies these risks because it sits near critical transatlantic communication routes, satellite monitoring corridors, and Arctic navigation channels. Any instability there could disrupt broader international security networks. The financial dimension also remains uncertain. While military acquisition might appear cheaper than purchasing territory, long-term occupation, governance, and infrastructure development could generate enormous ongoing costs. Managing public services, maintaining environmental safety, and building transportation systems in Arctic conditions requires sustained investment. Historical examples show that territorial expansion often becomes economically burdensome over time, particularly in extreme climates. At the same time, technological advancements could increase Greenland's future value. As renewable energy industries expand, demand for rare earth elements continues rising. Countries capable of securing stable supply chains may gain economic advantages in global energy transitions. Greenland's untapped mineral reserves place it at the center of this emerging competition, making its political future increasingly consequential. Despite escalating rhetoric, diplomatic negotiations remain the primary mechanism guiding international outcomes. Denmark continues emphasizing Greenland's autonomy and right to self-determination. Greenland's own government maintains authority over internal policies, including decisions related to resource development and foreign investment partnerships. Any attempt to alter this governance structure without local consent risks triggering internal resistance and international condemnation. The evolving Greenland situation represents more than a territorial dispute. It reflects the collision between traditional alliance structures and emerging resource-driven geopolitics. NATO, built during the Cold War to counter ideological adversaries, now faces internal stress caused by shifting economic and security priorities among its members. The Greenland controversy tests whether shared democratic values remain strong enough to prevent strategic competition within the alliance itself. As Arctic ice continues to melt and global energy transitions accelerate, remote territories like Greenland will likely gain even greater geopolitical significance. Governments, corporations, and military planners increasingly view polar regions as essential to future global infrastructure. Satellite communication, transpolar aviation, and resource extraction industries all depend on Arctic stability. Greenland sits directly within this expanding strategic map. Yet beneath these geopolitical calculations lies a small population navigating forces far beyond its control. Indigenous traditions, environmental preservation, and economic aspirations intersect with superpower rivalries. Greenland's residents face decisions that could redefine their cultural identity, political autonomy, and ecological landscape for generations. Their voices, though often overshadowed by international debates, remain central to the island's future. In the shifting landscape of global power competition, Greenland reveals how geography can transform into leverage, how alliances can strain under resource pressures, and how strategic ambitions can challenge long-standing diplomatic boundaries. The unfolding developments surrounding Greenland are not merely about land or minerals. They expose how modern geopolitics increasingly revolves around control of future possibilities rather than present realities. And subscribe.